Hey guys, this is Afro, back again with another monologue. Well, it's kind of been a while, again, but now that I'm on summer vacation, it seems like a good time to release another episode, by talking about a subject that I planned for a while, but was put on the back burner due to real life, being my past work experiences. Another thing that, like my college time, kind of kept me busy for a while. So, what can be said about jobs? Well, they can have their advantages. They're good character builders, you can get paid with money as your reward, and it will give you experience that can and will benefit you in the long run. Of course, it's important to have a job in order to support yourself and get by in life, but I'm mostly talking about being a college student that tried to make some money on the side, which I was able to do at one point, but with pretty mixed results. I recall the first job I had was volunteer work at my local library, shortly after my first year of college. It started out as a summer job, but ultimately became something I kept up with for about a year and 3 to 4 months. What I basically did was spend 2 hours every Tuesday and Thursday of each week cleaning book covers, putting them back in alphabetical order, and if I had a few minutes left in my shift, I would spend the rest of it either reading some of the books or playing one of the computer games there. While I didn't get paid for it, I still had a pretty good time there for being a quiet environment and it being a good place to start. I ended up quitting around Halloween time, but mostly through my parents as they felt it was time for me to make the next step at a paying job, in which I agreed. I tried applying earlier to a Hobby Lobby at my town's festival center, but they wanted me to start as a cashier and my math skills weren't really the best outside of the basics. I also tried applying to Target and the farthest I got was being interviewed, only to get a decline email a few days later. I think I applied to other places, but I can't remember which ones they were. However, I did manage to get an interview at this warehouse of sorts, and I actually ended up getting hired. So with that said, this should sound like the start of a pretty good experience for me. Really, this would mark the beginning of my complicated times working. Well, I appreciate the fact that they were willing to hire me when others didn't. The work that we did there was a pretty odd one. What they made me do at that warehouse was unboxing tissues and flattening the boxes, all of which was recycling. That may sound weird, and it basically was. But hey, as long as the pay is good, then maybe it would be all worth it. Oh boy, was I wrong. You wanna know how much I got for my first paycheck? $4.50. My first week or two there, $4.50. As you could probably guess, I was pretty livid. All that work for an amount that can't even afford a Happy Meal, and I vented my frustrations and said things that did get me into trouble afterwards. But with how I was paid, can you really blame me? Now, the boss there did tell me that the way we were paid was different or something like that, but it was still annoying regardless. But even with that, I still tried to make the most out of this first paying job by doing as much work as I could, and maybe making my first few months there as impressive as possible. Which was easier said than done. As work there quickly became very slow, there wasn't many shipments of tissue boxes, and there were days where I had not very much to do. That and, because this is a job where a lot of the workers were handicapped, there were times where I felt patronized by my superiors. Like one time when my dad came to pick me up, I couldn't go outside without one worker chaperoning me to the car. It was pretty damn grating, as were some of my co-workers. It was to the point that even my therapist agreed that this job wasn't a good fit for me, and I quit it the following week. And after that, I didn't really bother trying to look for another job after that. I mean, I had rejection after rejection, and the one job that was willing to hire me in a heartbeat wasn't that good. So that did kind of scare me off from trying to get another one for a while. That and other things were going on at the time. Plus, given that I got a better idea of what I wanted to major in at my college, I just figured it was for the best that I just focus on that for the time being. However, roughly a year later, this place called the Regional Center, in which they check up on me every year, was able to get me a job at JCPenney. And by JCPenney, it was kind of working for them, but under another organization called SVS, which, once again, is another work agency that helps disabled people find work. I'll give them credit that they were better employers than the last job. They didn't patronize me, the work they gave me seemed more in line with your typical workload, and the pay was a lot better. But even then, the last part wasn't saying much. When I mentioned it to my friends on Skype that I would get paid around $4 an hour, they told me that meant I was getting paid below minimum wage, and there were times I didn't handle things as well as I should have. This also had to be around the time Jack was planning to visit me in just the end. Well, I learned that I had to wait another year to take some time off from work, and I really didn't take it well. But thankfully business was getting very slow at the time, so it didn't affect our hanging out time. But saying that, this was another job where it had several droughts and not much merchandise to tag or box. Given that this job was JCPenney, a retail business that's still suffering with the rise of online shopping, did seem to explain a lot. It reached the point where, not long after Jack's visit and my trip to Chicago, when I came to the warehouse with other people at my work area I was stationed in, and they told me that I didn't have to come anymore. So, basically, I got laid off. But that didn't stop SVS, who I was still employed under, to search for another place for me to work, which would lead to my next and last paying job for a while. A place called Hand and Nail Harmony, basically a nail polish warehouse, which I started at the beginning of July, and it was the same as before, stocking and packaging merchandise with the group. And I'll admit, working with the assembly lines did make for one of the more interesting moments of this new line of work, but this was the job that felt the most draining for one particular reason. Now, when I started to try and find a job, I was hoping it would be something I could do on the side while I try to major in art at my community college. But the thing is, there are some jobs that won't let you do that. And on August of 2016, I learned that the hard way. I remember it all too well. Just as the workday was done and I got into the car, my dad gave me a blank look for a few seconds and told me the bad news. That the warehouse I was working in won't allow time off to focus on college, and I had to work for them full time at all costs. And what followed was perhaps a pretty dark time for me. No matter how much I pleaded and begged them, they declined my wishes, and I had to sacrifice a fall semester. Though, it wasn't always complete gloom back then. I had Anime California 2016, and I had shorter workdays for most of September, but that didn't change the fact that I began to resent my time there. With some bothersome coworkers, my workstation changing, and the more draining I felt with each passing day, I felt like I was at a dead end, trapped, with no hope of escape. I tried finding work elsewhere that's more accepting to more flexible schedules for college's sake, but to no avail. Some encouraged me to stick around for at least until Christmas, but I just didn't have the willpower to go with it. Especially since it was the same year that hellish presidential election that ended with Trump winning, so I just wanted to end the year on a relaxing note. So I quit mid-November, and they thanked me for all my work, ending a pretty cumbersome part of my life. So, going through all that, you could tell that my attempts at working weren't that successful, as I found practically most of them very frustrating and tiresome at many points, and the one job that I practically enjoyed the most was the one where I didn't get paid. Go figure. Plus, they all seem to share a lot of the same problems. Getting paid below minimum wage and having to work under supervision, meaning most of my coworkers were also handicapped and even more so than me. I get that it was idealistic for someone like me to start out in that line of work, but I just wish it didn't come with so many bogus setbacks like being patronized and talked down to. But, for the sake of positivity, I'll go over the good things that came out of my work experiences. It was a good character builder for me, and I managed to get some pretty big savings of my own. And for all the annoying coworkers, there were also ones that were more pleasant to be around, including my job coaches. They were nice, they gave me help and advice when needed, and they made me feel a little better for being there. Plus, all the droughts became an advantage for me being able to hang out with Jissy and KHF when the latter came down to visit. And I had the money to afford a tag-along with Jack when he went to Chicago. And most of all, working for JCPenney, Hand in Nail Harmony, and SVS as a whole gave me a much better understanding of the job field that I at least know for next time. I mean, if there's a next time. Since then, I haven't really found more work, and it's one of the hardest things to do as an adult. Whether it's bad timing or being too focused on college work, I just can't get hired anywhere close to me because I don't have much experience. Well, I'm sorry, I find it hard to get tons of experience if I'm not hired first. Not to mention my past jobs showed that working isn't really that fun. But then again, too much time at home's never really a good thing either. And surely I am able to enjoy a job if it has a good work environment, reasonable hours, decent pay, and a not too far driving distance. Which, I know they're out there, I really do. But they also seem like the toughest jobs to get, as many companies want you to work as many hours as possible, as if part-time is out of the question. There's also the fact that I have to hold on to a job for more than a year if I want some vacation time, say if KHF or Jissy want to visit, which again, seems too much of a hassle, especially with the possibility of getting laid off like last time. Though say if I was able to get that kind of work, is that something I would truly want? At first, I was hoping to work on my art major and make a few bucks on the side, but clearly that didn't work out. And even if it did, most of my semesters lately have been giving me so much work to do in a single art class, let alone two. So a job on the side would just make me feel more overwhelmed. Especially since, as stressful as it is, these art classes are there to help me master my skills and major in art, in order for me to pursue my dream career. What would working at regular retail jobs give me? Another job that might put bread on the table, but it's not really what I want to do for the rest of my life. But worst of all, I feel the main reason I haven't worked since then is because I guess this area has just brought out the worst in me. I honestly feel bad for once having a desire to work and make money on my own, only to then complain about it not being what I was expecting, leaving me to lash out and say and do things that I would go on to regret, and I don't think it's even worth it anymore. I guess it just makes me more eager to get that art certificate done and over with, just so I can move on and hopefully have better luck getting work doing what I love doing. But with that said, a part of me still kinda wants to make some extra dough on the side. Well, I guess there's always commissions I could do. Hopefully. But what about you guys? Did you have any work experience? Did you enjoy it, or had the same feelings I did? Be sure to share it in the comments below if you're willing to, but also give me a like, subscribe, ring that bell because I make videos when I have the time. This is Afro Otaku, and I'll catch you all later. Bye!